Hello all, and welcome to tonight's beer review, which I am dubbing, woke up on the wrong side of the bed today, so it's the wrong side of the bed review. But, you know what? On the way home from work, heard some Joni Mitchell on the radio, and Joni Mitchell never fails to cheer me up. Isn't that kind of random? So, what are we reviewing oh, and beer makes me happy too. What are we reviewing tonight? Well, 2017 beer camp across the world. This one is the white IPA with Yuzu from Kiuchi. Kiuchi. This is really bad because I lived in Japan and I studied Japanese for like 3 years. Kiuchi Brewery. Now this is ale brewed with coriander, nutmeg, and yuzu. And honestly, I've never had Kiuchi Brewery. When I lived in Japan, it's almost been 10 years already. Craft beer hadn't really taken off yet there, and there was really only 2 places in the general vicinity of where I lived where you could go and pick it up. And, it was just like a small little shelf, and, what was the otherwise the big 4 macro brewers in Japan. So I never really got around to it, but they appear now at Whole Foods, so, it's nice that craft brewing has boomed in Japan. Let's read the label, shall we? Japan's Kiuchi Brewery, makers of the Hitachi no Nest beers, have an elegant take on classic beer styles with a uniquely Japanese influence. They suggested adding yuzu, an Asian citrus fruit, to a hazy white IPA, and we jumped at the chance. What emerged is a hoppy yet refined version of a style with a bright citrus flavor and a spicy finish. Wow, I really messed up that read through. Yeah, this day keeps on going. So, let's just get to the beer, shall we? This is 7.0 ABV, so pretty heavy for an IPA. Belgian style white IPA. So we got the glass here, Belgian style glass. And Hitachi no Nest. Yeah, I should probably go and review those. It'd be nice to go and review some Japanese beers. I've only reviewed some Japanese macro lagers, and as you know, macro lagers never actually are brewed, so Japanese macro lager would be brewed in Canada or California or something like that, if I remember the Asahi Super Dry review that I did. So let's get to this, shall we? I'm a bit curious how the yuzu kind of comes out. Uh-oh. Gave it a fairly vigorous pour here, maybe a little bit too vigorous. Slightly cloudy, bright yellow color. Kind of surprisingly bright yellow. Well, that is an interesting nose here. You got the coriander. You kind of got like there's also a sweetness that comes from the nutmeg. The yuzu comes across as a sort of green juiciness. Yuzu kind of, when I've drank it, it's a citron, by the way, so it's not really a pith. It doesn't really have meat. It's just like all rind and pith. Very green sort of citrus smell to it. As if it was kind of herbaceously citrus. Floral. Hops. Very floral, actually. Kind of bleeding into the coriander there. Not too many IPA style hop notes in the nose. That is an interesting array of flavors there. Definitely, I'm sorry, my hair is going crazy here. definitely, you know, that sort of Belgian witbier front with an intensified sort of juiciness from the amped up malts and hopping. With all the higher notes, like coriander, you know, that sort of slightly yeasty funkiness. That sort of residual sweetness on the tongue. Very Belgian. Then, you know, kind of hops come in. It's not a big rush of hops that kind of goes from the mids and into the finish. There's only a slight residual kind of resiny hoppiness in the finish. There's a big burst of kind of juicy hopness in the mid palate there. That sort of, yeah, I would say that, you know, the Yuzu really kind of does add a strong coloration to that point, because it's not very reminiscent of any other kind of citrus that I've had before. It's not really quite Yuzu either, but it moves it into a different direction, which makes it fairly interesting. If you don't like wit beers, you might not like this one. Coriander is actually pretty strong in it. It's actually still kind of residing on the tongue there, and can still kind of get hints of it up in your sinuses. Feels about right for a 7.0, you know, taste-wise. Slightly light on the mouth feel, but that's no big thing. I kind of expect that from a wit beer. Nutmeg mostly shows itself up in the front, you know, as a sort of sweet earthiness. Doesn't really stick around into the finish. Also some higher notes too. It kind of plays around inside that coriander there. Huh. Kind of wondering where they got the idea of putting nutmeg in it. It's not something that I would think to go well, you know, with coriander or yuzu, or even in an IPA style, but it definitely adds a sort of very different sweetness to it. Very subtle, very different sweetness. Not too different as it warms up, I'm finding. Maybe that resiny bitterness in the back kind of, you know, kind of sticks around a bit longer. But other than that, pretty much the same. Nicely complex beer. I'd have trouble seeing what to compare it with. And I can see this kind of, you know, people who like wit beers and people who like IPAs are kind of two different categories. So, you know, there's a little bit of, you know, people who like white beers might not like the IPA aspect. People like IPAs might not like the wit beer aspect, but I like both. And actually, you know, I've been kind of getting to like wit beers again. If you go and look at my earlier reviews, I'm kind of down on them after drinking so many of the Sam Adams style ones, which tend to be hit or, I mean, they used to be a hit or miss, but now that I'm finding they're actually being a little bit better in their box set. So, you know, and plus trying some other brewers, so I've been enjoying the style a bit more now. But, you know, I like that crossover. This particular beer here from Kiuchi Brewery, and, you know, from collaboration with Sierra Nevada. Really interesting one for those who want to explore the intersection in between those two styles, and you know, some very interesting sort of flavoring adjuncts used, go out and give yourself a shot here. Okay, that's your beer review for tonight, folks. Cheers.